Oh, hello there. I'm Mr. Perkins. I'm one of the drivers on Sir Topham Hatt's Railway. It's very, very cold today, so I've come up to the signal box to get warm. Thomas is still away on his travels. Oh, I wonder if it's as cold as this where he's working. Somewhere with lots of snow, like up here at the North Pole. I hope he remembered to bring his snow plough. An engine can get into a lot of trouble if there's snow on the tracks. And that reminds me of a story. It's called Thomas, Terence and the Snow. One day, Thomas was puffing along when he heard the chug-chug of a tractor at work. "Hello," said the tractor. "I'm Terence. I'm ploughing." "I'm Thomas," said Thomas. "What ugly wheels you've got." "They're not ugly. They're caterpillars," said Terence. "I can go anywhere. I don't need rails." Winter came, and with it, dark, heavy clouds full of snow. "Pah! Snow is silly soft stuff," said Thomas. "It won't stop me." But soon the rails were two dark lines standing out in the white snow. "We're going to fix your snowplough on, and I want no nonsense, please," said Thomas's driver. But they couldn't make it fit properly. Next morning, Thomas's driver was anxious. "The snow's not bad here," he said to the fireman, "but it's sure to be deep in the valley." Thomas entered a tunnel. At the other end, he saw a heap of snow fallen from the sides of the cutting. "Silly old snow," said Thomas, and he charged it. Whoosh! Thomas was stuck in the drift. More snow fell and piled up around him until Thomas was nearly buried. "I shall have to stop here till I'm frozen," said Thomas. "What a silly engine I am." Bertie the bus came to pick up the passengers. And then, who should chug through the tunnel to rescue Thomas? It was Terence, the tractor. "Thank you, Terence. Your caterpillars are splendid," said Thomas gratefully. Thomas still doesn't like wearing his snowplough, but he knows he has to if it's snowing. Well, I better make sure I'm dressed up warm before I go back out again. Goodbye. See you again soon.
Autumn had come to the island of Sodor. The fields were changing from yellow stubble to brown earth, and a tractor was hard at work as Thomas puffed along. Later, Thomas saw the tractor close by. "Hello," said the tractor. "I'm Terence. I'm ploughing." "I'm Thomas. I'm pulling a train." "What ugly wheels you've got." "They're not ugly. They're caterpillars," said Terence. "I can go anywhere. I don't need rails." "I don't want to go anywhere," said Thomas. "I like my rails, thank you." Winter came with dark clouds full of snow. "I don't like it," said Thomas's driver. "A heavy fall is coming. I hope it doesn't stop us." "Huh," said Thomas. "Soft stuff, nothing to it." And he puffed on, feeling cold but confident. They finished their journey safely, but by now the country was covered. "You'll need your snowplough for the next journey, Thomas," said his driver. "Huh! Snow is silly soft stuff. It won't stop me." The snowplough was heavy and uncomfortable and made Thomas cross. He shook it and he banged it, and when they got back, it was so damaged that the driver had to take it off. "You're a very naughty engine," he said to Thomas. Next morning, Thomas's driver and fireman came early and worked hard to mend the snowplow, but they couldn't make it fit. Thomas was pleased. "I shan't have to wear it, I shan't have to wear it," he puffed to Annie and Clarabel. But they were rather worried. "I hope it's all right, I hope it's all right," they whispered to each other. The driver was worried too. "It's not bad here," he said to the fireman, "but it's sure to be deep in the valley." "Silly soft stuff," puffed Thomas. "I didn't need that stupid old thing yesterday, and I shan't today. Snow can't stop me." He rushed into a tunnel thinking how clever he was, but there was trouble ahead. "Cinders and ashes," said Thomas. "I'm stuck." And he was. "Back, Thomas, back," said his driver. Thomas tried, but his wheels spun and he couldn't move. The guard went back for help, while everyone else tried to dig the snow away. But as fast as they dug, more snow slipped down until Thomas was nearly buried. "Oh, my wheels and coupling rods! I shall have to stop here till I'm frozen. What a silly engine I am!" And Thomas began to cry. At last, a bus came to rescue the passengers. And then, who should come to Thomas's rescue but Terence? Snow never worries him. He pulled the empty coaches away, then came back for Thomas. Thomas's wheels were clear, but still spun when he tried to move. Terence tugged and slipped and slipped and tugged, and at last dragged Thomas clear of the snow, ready for the journey home. "Thank you, Terence. Your caterpillars are splendid," said Thomas. "I hope you'll be sensible now, Thomas," said his driver. "I'll try," said Thomas, and he puffed humbly away.
Oh, hello there. My name's Mr. Perkins. I'm one of the drivers here on the island of Sodor. Sometimes I drive Thomas, but Thomas is travelling abroad at the moment. Isn't he adventurous, travelling to lots of different countries and different climates? He's a brave little tank engine, not scared of anything. Or is he? I remember a time when Thomas got quite a fright. It's a story in one of these books. Here it is. The Ghost Train. Percy was telling Thomas about when his driver saw the ghost train. "Oh, it makes my wheels wobble to think of it," said Percy. "Pah," said Thomas. "You're just a silly little engine, Percy. I'm not scared." That night, Sam was delivering a load of lime to Mr. Crow. As he crossed the track, his cartwheel got stuck in the mud. He didn't know that Percy was on his way. Crash! Percy broke the cart to smithereens. Lime flew everywhere, and Percy was covered in it. "What have you done to Percy?" said the signalman. "People will think he's a ghost." On their way home, Percy and his driver met Toby. "Oh, do let's pretend I'm a ghost and scare Thomas," said Percy. "That'll teach him to say I'm a silly little engine." Toby hurried back to the sheds. "I have just seen something. It looked like Percy's ghost." "Don't be frightened, Toby," said Thomas. Percy approached the shed quietly and glided through it. "Let me in," said Percy in a spooky voice. "Oh dear," exclaimed Thomas, and he hurried out the other way. But Thomas didn't return that night. The next morning, Toby asked him where he'd been. "I slept in the goods shed," said Thomas. And I can't stop. I've got to see a coach about a train. And he shot off like a jackrabbit. Percy rolled up alongside Toby. Well, anyone would think, chuckled Toby, that our Thomas had just seen a ghost. So, seems Thomas is not quite as brave as he makes out. Oh, well, we can all be scared sometimes. It's time for me to go. See you again soon. Goodbye.
And every year on the date of the accident, it runs again as a warning to others, plunging into the gap, shrieking like a lost soul. Percy, what are you talking about? The ghost train. Driver saw it last night. Where? Asked Thomas and Toby. He didn't say. Oh, it makes my wheels wobble to think of it. Huh, said Thomas. You're just a silly little engine. I'm not scared. Thomas didn't believe in your ghost, said Percy next morning. His driver laughed. Neither do I. It was a pretend ghost on television. Percy was disappointed. That evening, he came back from the harbour. Percy knew where he was, even in the dark. Crow's Farm Crossing. We shan't be long now. He liked running at night. The rails hummed and the signal lights shone green. But a broken cartload of lime lay ahead. Sam the farmer had just gone for help. Percy broke the cart to smithereens. Lime flew everywhere. He puffed quickly to the nearest signal box. Percy's driver explained what had happened. I'll see to it, said the signalman, but you'd better clean Percy or people will think he's a ghost. Percy chuckled. Do let's pretend I'm a ghost and scare Thomas. That'll teach him to say I'm a silly little engine. Toby promised to help. Thomas was being oiled up for his evening train. Percy's had an accident, cried Toby. Poor engine, said Thomas. Botheration! That means I'll be late. They've cleared the line for you, but there's something worse. Out with it, Toby. I can't wait all evening. I've just seen something, said Toby. It looked like Percy's ghost. It said it was coming here to warn us. Huh! Who cares? Don't be frightened, Toby. I'll take care of you. Pee, pee, pip, 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 pee. Let me in! Let me in! Wailed Percy. No, no, not by the smoke of my chimney, chim, chim. I'll chuff and I'll puff and I'll break your door in. Oh dear, exclaimed Thomas. It's getting late. Oh, I'd no idea. Oh, I must find Annie and Clarabel. It was morning when Thomas returned. Where have you been? Asked Toby. Ah, well, said Thomas. I knew you'd be sad about Percy, and I didn't like to intrude. I slept in the goods shed, and... Oh, sorry, can't stop. Got to see a coach about to train. Percy was none the worse for his adventure and was still enjoying himself enormously. He had heard everything. Well, 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 what do you know about that? Anyone would think, chuckled Toby, that our Thomas had just seen a ghost.
Oh, hello there. My name's Mr. Perkins. I'm one of the engine drivers here on Sir Topham Hatt's Railway. I was just thinking about Thomas. He's away, travelling the world at the moment. I wonder what kind of exotic animals he'll see. Maybe he'll see an elephant. I remember a story about an engine who saw an elephant right here on Sodor, and he wasn't too happy about it. It's in one of these books. Yes, here it is. It's called Henry and the Elephant. One morning, Henry was told to take some workmen to a tunnel which was blocked. The workmen tried to look through it, but it was quite dark. No daylight shined through the other end. The workmen took their tools and went inside. Suddenly, with a shout, all the workmen ran out of the tunnel looking frightened. We went to the block and started to dig, but it grunted and moved, they said. Right, said the foreman. I'll ride in the car and Henry shall push it. Henry hated tunnels. Peep, 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 he whistled. I don't want to go in. We must clear the line, said his driver. Henry slowly advanced into the darkness. Bump! Help! Help! We're going back! Wailed Henry. Henry came out of the tunnel first, and then the cars, and last of all, pushing hard, came a large, rather cross elephant. The elephant stopped pushing and came towards them. The workman gave him some sandwiches and cake. So he forgot he was cross and remembered he was hungry. The elephant drank 3 buckets of water without stopping, and he was going to drink another when Henry let off steam. The elephant jumped and whoosh, squirted the water all over Henry by mistake. When the keeper came, the workmen rode home happily in the cars, laughing at their adventure. But Henry was very cross. An elephant pushed me, and an elephant whooshed me, he hissed. Oh dear, poor Henry. Do you know, I quite feel like some sandwiches and cake after that story. I wonder what Mrs. Perkins has put in my lunch. Goodbye, see you again soon.
Thomas the Tank Engine puffed happily along his branch line with Annie and Clarabelle. The Fat Controller was waiting on the platform. He looked at his watch. Well done, Thomas. You are right on time and really reliable. Thank you, sir, whistled Thomas. Ooh, right on time and really reliable, hummed the coaches. But the big engines were not feeling cheerful at all. Where's Percy? Mumbled Henry. He's supposed to fetch our coaches. We get no rest, complained James. He edged angrily onto the turntable and spoke rudely to Henry. What's the matter, Henry? There's no rain today. Stop worrying and do some work instead. I'm not afraid of getting wet anymore, huffed Henry. Anyway, you look silly enough to be a clown. You should be in a circus. Oh, whistle Percy, so you've heard the news. What news? Grunted Gordon. About the circus. Percy, what are you talking about? The circus has arrived, explained Percy. I've been shunting special trucks. The Fat Controller needs your help too. The engines soon forgot to be tired and cross. Until it was time for the circus to leave. Then Gordon and Henry were cross all over again when James got to pull the train away. A little later, the Fat Controller returned. Come along, Henry. A tunnel is blocked down the line. You must take some workmen to investigate. Pushing trucks, grumbled Henry. They stopped outside the tunnel. The workmen went inside. It was very dark and quiet, but not for long. Help! Shouted the workmen, and they ran out. We started to dig at the block, but it grunted and moved, one said. Rubbish, said the foreman. It's not rubbish, it's big and alive. We're not going in there again. Right, said the foreman. I'll ride in the truck and Henry shall push it out. Wheesh, said Henry unhappily. He had been shut in the tunnel for being afraid of the rain, but this was worse. Something big and alive was inside. Beep, beep. I don't want to go in. Neither do I, said his driver. But we must clear the line. Oh dear, puffed Henry. Then there was trouble. The block was indeed alive and very strong. It began to push the train backwards. Out of the tunnel came Henry. Then the trucks, and last of all, a large cross elephant. Well, I never did, cried the foreman. The workmen gave him some cake. He drank 3 buckets of water and was just about to drink another when Henry let off steam. Oh! Cried the elephant. Water went all over Henry. Poor Henry. The elephant and his keeper were soon reunited, but Henry was most upset. An elephant pushed me! An elephant pushed me! That night, he told the other engines all about it. Gordon and James felt sorry for Henry, but still teased him. First the rain, then an elephant. Whatever will you be afraid of next? Never mind, Henry, murmured Thomas. I think you were brave today and really reliable too.
Oh, hello there. My name's Mr. Perkins. I'm one of the engine drivers here on Sir Topham Hatt's railway. Thomas is working abroad at the moment. He must be seeing some amazing sights and meeting all sorts of new engines from all over the world. Isn't he lucky? The only way I get to meet so many engines is to go to a railway exhibition. I remember when the Sodor engines took part in an exhibition on the mainland. There's a story about it in one of these books. Ah, yes, here it is. It's called Sir Topham Hatt's Engines. One evening, Thomas brought his last train to the junction. I'm going to the big station, he told Percy and Toby. Sir Topham Hatt has a plan he wants to tell us. At the big station, Sir Topham Hatt was waiting for them. The people of the mainland have read about us in books, he said, but they don't believe we are real. So, I am taking my engines to the mainland to show them. Hooray! Hooray! The engines whistled. We leave the day after tomorrow, said Sir Topham Hatt. Meanwhile, as these engines have kindly come from the other railway to do your work, please show them what to do. It was Thomas's job to show the new engines how to shunt coaches. But Thomas was showing off, and he crashed into some buffers. His front was badly bent. Thomas's driver telephoned Sir Topham Hatt. "I'll send some men," he said. "But if they can't mend Thomas in time, we'll go to the mainland without him." The next day, Sir Topham Hatt paced the platform. He looked at his watch. "1 minute more," he said to the guard. "Peep, peep, peep," whistled Thomas as he panted into the station. He was just in time. Thomas hurried into line and all the engines puffed off on their way to the mainland. When they arrived, the engines stood side by side in a big airy shed. Hundreds of people came to see them, they said. Nothing anywhere can compare with Sir Topham Hatt's engines. I quite agree, and I can't wait for Thomas to come back to Sodor. I hope you'll come back again soon too. Goodbye.
One evening, Thomas brought his last train to the junction. Percy was glad to see him. "Are you on your way to the big station, Thomas?" "Yes, I am. Why?" "Because I'm going there too. I think something's up." Toby looked at the sky. "Where?" "Not up there, down here," laughed Thomas. "How can something be up when it's down?" Thomas was too excited to explain. "Bust my buffers, look over there. Mavis, Boko, Bill, Ben, Donald, Oliver and Douglas paraded past." "Good evening, you three," whistled Donald. "Aren't we all a fine sight?" "Very splendid indeed," admired Toby. "But sorry we can't stop. The Fat Controller wants us all together at the station." "What is this about?" asked Thomas. "The Fat Controller has a plan," answered his driver. "Come on." So they followed the other engines to the big station at the end of the line. "Halt!" called the Fat Controller. "I have an important letter to read from a little girl who is 5 years old." "Dear Thomas and all the engines, please can I meet you? My friends say they would like to meet you too. You could come to my house for tea, but my mummy says there aren't any railway tracks to my house. Can you come to the station instead? Thank you very much." "It seems," continued the Fat Controller, "that there are many girls and boys who would like to meet you. Therefore, we are all going to the big city far away." "Hooray! Hooray!" the engines whistled. "Silence!" called the Fat Controller. "Other engines will be working here while you are away, so please show them what to do." As Annie and Clarabelle were going to the big city too, Thomas and Oliver practiced with some other coaches. Thomas grew more and more excited. Too excited for his own good. "I'm glad I'm a splendid engine," he puffed. "The Fat Controller thinks I'm really useful. I had a race with Bertie once. I whooshed through the tunnel and stopped an inch from the buffers." Then Thomas made his mistake. "Just like this," he boasted. No one was hurt, but Thomas's front was badly bent. They telephoned to the Fat Controller. "I'll send up the workmen," he said. But if they can't mend Thomas in time, we'll have to go to the big city without him. Poor Thomas. 8 o'clock next morning. The engines waited at the junction. Toby and Percy were each on a truck, and Duck had pushed them into place behind Edward. Gordon, James and Henry were waiting to lead off. They whistled impatiently. The Fat Controller looked at his watch. I'll wait one more minute for Thomas, then we have to go. Oh, thank goodness you're still here, panted Thomas. I hope we're not late, as it's just after 8. The guard blew his whistle and waved his flag. The engines cheered. Look our big city, here we come. And the cavalcade puffed away. Later in the big city, all the engines were lined up in a splendid shed. The children were delighted to meet their friends. I'm glad the little girl wrote to us, whispered Thomas to Percy. Isn't it wonderful what happiness a letter can bring?